In this video, we're going to be tearing down a 2003 Specialized RockHopper in preparation for a budget build for my niece. So I picked this bike up in January 2023 for £40 off Marketplace. It's in good condition and bad condition, so initial impressions it looks quite good, but there's quite a lot of niggly expensive issues to sort out. I checked the chain wear using the Part chain tool and it's stretched over 0.75% quite significantly. The chain tool falls really easy on both sides, so the chain and cassette's probably a write-off. Also, the drivetrain's covered in a really heavy winter type chain oil, which isn't good because it's got absolutely everywhere in the proximity of the drivetrain. These stem bolts are really super crusty and I'm worried they're probably going to strip when removing them. The Avid levers are quite worn where your finger rests on it, although these grips feel quite new, so maybe it was updated at some point in time. There's a front light accessory there for mounting it. Also, when I was riding at home, the shifters felt inconsistent and missing shifts, so that's something to bear in mind. I'm going to need to fix. The anodizing on the stem itself is faded to this sort of off silvery pewtery brown, which I think is actually kind of cool, but maybe it's not ideal for this bike. And there's a bit of rust on the top headset cap there. Moving down towards the fork, you can see there's a weird wear patch in the headset here, which makes me think the bike had a major service at some point in time and has been cabled differently. That's not good. The forks themselves look in decent conditions, but these Avid brakes are kind of starting to corrode away a bit, so maybe we have to sort that out. And the bolts that hold them in look really manky. As you can see, this bike's fitted with commuter tyres, which makes me think it's been used as a commuter. The fork sliders look okay, they're sort of the hard chrome ones, and I can see a little bit of corrosion through them, so I need to sort that out. And moving down towards the wheels, we've got the Specialized hubs, which seem to roll quite smoothly, but we'll give them a service and see if we can bring these back to life. The actual rim wall's quite heavily worn, so they haven't got much life left in them, even if we get the hubs working well. Moving on up to the saddle, it's quite heavily worn, so that's got to go because this bike's going to be a gift, so yeah, that's definitely no good. It's got this pretty heinous saddle bag on here. It looks like it's been exposed to a lot of UV light. Unfortunately, there's nothing cool inside it hiding away. It's just kind of a big, ugly, chunky, clunky saddle bag. Original saddle still, Specialized. Seat post looks okay, a bit tatty, but not too bad. Moving on down still. What have we got here? Oh, a nice Specialized original bottle cage. That's kind of cool. It's a nice little bonus. I think I'll reuse that for another project because I think I'm going to change the colour of that for the build. The kind of red details on the bike have kind of faded to pinkish, which is okay, I think. It's kind of a reddy pink. And generally, it's okay. I think it's quite heavily scratched and tarnished, the frame. And if you look down here, where is it? It's okay around the head tube, no signs of cracks. But as we come down towards the bottom bracket, there's some corrosion around these two extra water bottle holes. I'm not sure why this bike has 3 water bottle positions. That's a bit excessive for a mountain bike, I think. Having a detailed look at the drivetrain now, it's got a Dior 9-speed front mech, and I don't think this would have been the original chain set from what I can see in the pictures. I think this is a Shimano Alivio one with the Octalink style bottom bracket, I think. It did come with these Shimano touring pedals, which has the SPD one side and the flat pedal the other side. That'd be no good for my niece, so I need to find replacements for those, but I can put them to use. And here's sort of the detail of this heavy chain oil that's getting everywhere. So yeah, it's not in a good condition. Moving on towards the rear, we have a nice Shimano XT rear mech, which is a nice little bonus. But as you can see on the closer inspection, everything's heavily gunked up and desperately in need of a service. The cassette is, well, yeah, probably straight for the bin, to be honest. I'm not going to clean that up. Rear wheel feels okay. There's a little bit of play in the bearings, so that gets sorted out. It's just a Shimano hub, so that should be fixable. And finally, the rear brake, it's kind of a really wide stance going on here, and the noodle's broken. You can see the inner cable poking out of it there, and it's starting to corrode just like the front brake, so yeah, not good. And these Nimbus tyres, yeah, they're not really super stylish for what I want, so maybe I'll see if I can reuse those for something, but it's not obvious. Quick release seems pretty good. So yeah, overall it's kind of okay. Only spent £40 on it, it's not the end of the world, but it's acceptable, I think. So with all that said, let's start tearing this bike down and find out what other things we discover when taking it apart. First off, let's get rid of this saddlebag because it's rubbish and they can't even get the logo the right way around on their own product, so straight for the bin, just useless. I'm going to lose these reflectors as well. I don't think they're worthwhile myself, get the rear light. And it's the same story for the front reflector. And here we have a front light mount, which is plastic waste. To me, the grip's looking really good condition, so I'm going to try to reuse these. They've got a nice little anodized red bit on them as well, and I'm thinking I might go for a bit of an anodized red theme on the build, so I'm going to retain these for now because they're in perfectly good condition, to be honest. One thing I've started to do is retain outer cables for bikes when I've tear them down, to use them as a guide to cut new cables to. Also, the ferrules at the ends can be reused, so there's a bit of recycling there to take advantage of. I was quite surprised when I finally got the cable out of this brake thing because there's excessive corrosion on the little cable holder there. Back to talking about cable ferrules again, and this bike has unique special cable ferrules on the top tube here to allow you to run either a brake cable or a brake hose, so like an extra large cable ferrule. So this is again carefully analysing the bits you're taking off and making sure you retain parts that are special to the bike. There's a sneaky plastic rub screw hiding in the shifter here that you have to remove before you can poke out the cable. So the night before trying to remove the stem, I gave all the bolt threads a squirt with WD-40 to try to sort of free them up because I'm worried they might be seized into the stem itself. But the other factor is, like, as the stem bolts are so rusty, it's kind of hard to get the Allen key in the hole of the bolt. So yeah, I'm kind of making sure it's really thoroughly located in the bolt itself before sort of trying to undo it. And as you can see, as I'm pulling the bolt in, the tool in and out, it's kind of like smoking as I release the tool. But as the bars are released, I think I can potentially spot a problem here. The bars are quite white and oxidized around the stem clamp, which means there's probably been water trapped in there, and I don't know if I'd trust these bars in the future, so for this bike I'm going to get some new bars for it instead of reusing these. Moving on to the drivetrain, I'm going to use master link pliers to remove the quick link here. But this chain is going straight in the bin. It's so nasty and it kind of smells bad as well, so yeah, straight for the bin. So here's the XT rear mech removed from the bike. It came off with no issues at all. But yeah, front of it looks fine until you turn it around to the back and look at the state of that oily gunky mess. Like, those jockey wheels are absolutely gunked up to the max there. So yeah, we're going to have to sort that out for sure. The pedals came off with no issues at all. I might try to reuse this for one of my own personal bikes. I don't think my niece is going to want SPDs. So yeah, I think a light service and these pedals would be perfect for reusing. A bit rusty, but not terrible. The Dior front mech removed without any issues, so yeah, that was pretty good because it's pretty gunged up down here, but yeah, no issues and no bubbling underpaint underneath as well, which is nice. I can then remove the wheels from the bike at this stage. Time to remove the chain set now. Now the bottom bracket feels okay on this bike. It's not notchy or anything, but it's not particularly like smooth and free spinning, so it might be on the end of its like serviceable life before it starts getting notchy. Just checking for a washer there, and there's just like this weird plastic washer that's just in the way. And then on this type of bottom bracket we need to use a crank extractor, so yeah, just thread it in all the way, make sure it's really well nice and honed by using a spanner to make sure it's tightened into the crank, because sometimes a little bit of dirt or something in there can stop you winding it in as far as you need and strip the threads out. So yeah, and yeah, it'll come off with no problems at all. Look, all the grime and dirt there. One thing I can't sort of communicate with you other than through my voice is the smell of this bike. It's kind of got like a combination of like transmission fluid and chainsaw fluid on it. It just smells like really grimy, this oil. Just having a quick assessment of what I think the bottom bracket feels like without the cranks on it now, and the bearings don't feel great, so maybe this one's for the bin. The non-drive side plastic cup of the bottom bracket came out of the frame without too much of a fight. So onto the drive side of the bottom bracket now, and boy did I have a fight on my hand with this side. Yeah, I'll go into it a bit later in the video because I've had to break this down into sections so the timeline remains relevant, but effectively what's happening is here is this bottom bracket is kind of stuck in the frame, and the other issue is this Octolink type of bottom bracket doesn't have very deep splines, so every time I apply a torque to the bottom bracket the tool's slipping out. And my bottom bracket tool doesn't have like a through hole in it suitable to sort of bolt it to the frame, so I think that's something I need to get in the future. So what I've done here is I've just tried to clean it up and see what's going on, and yeah, try apply pressure to the tool to force it into the thing, and it keeps slipping out no matter what I do. So yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma at this point in time. So WD-40 is your friend with this, a bit more WD-40 in the bottom bracket just to try to seize it up and make it come out with less force, and work on some other parts of the bike for a bit, I think, whilst this is soaking in. Whilst that penetrating oil's getting onto the bottom bracket, I'm going to remove the V-brakes. Generally I'm going to try to reuse these, but I think I need to sort of put the bolts in some anti-corrosive substance to clean them up because they look crusty and horrible. So yeah, we want to dunk those in some white wine vinegar or Rusties or something like that to just de-rust them and make them look more aesthetically pleasing. The V-brakes came off the bike with no issues at all, so that was a good thing. They just look a bit crusty and need a bit of TLC, but I think they're reusable at this stage. So next, let's try to remove the forks from the bike. These came out with no problems at all really. It's just a case of removing the stem, then sort of giving the fork steerer a tap to break the sort of conical washer and the headset away, and it all dropped out with no problems at all. Pulling the headset apart, it's kind of greasy and grimy, but it's serviceable. I think it's savable. There's no sort of signs of rust or corrosion too much in there, although the grease is like nearly completely dried up. I'm going to try to reuse that. So back onto the bottom bracket, and I've decided to break out the heat gun. This should be effective on this type of bike, aluminium bike with a steel bottom bracket shell. So that heating the bike up should make the aluminium expand faster than the steel. I'm just worried about the paint getting too hot and starting to bubble off. So yeah, that's my main sort of worry, is to heat it up but not too much. But unfortunately, the issue of the sort of shallow splines on this Octolink type bottom bracket is causing the same issues. I can't get enough purchase on the bottom bracket to apply enough torque without the tool pinging itself out. So let's try something different. I thought to myself that maybe I can reduce the moment arm on the tool in the frame by using an adjustable spanner and trying to shock it out using that way, but it still didn't work, unfortunately. So back to scratching my head and having to think what to do. So I gave it another application of WD-40, then I worked my way around the bike doing all the other little odds and sods jobs by removing some screws from here and there and getting the bottle cage off, and then I gave the bike a good tidy up and degrease, because the bike is absolutely disgusting with like grime and grease in the drivetrain area. So yeah, as you can see, it's absolutely coated down by the way the cassette was. It's disgusting. It was actually kind of hard to remove. I had to start scraping it off in areas just to try to, you know, neaten the bike up. But yeah, we got there in the end. Then I had an idea how to remove the bottom bracket. So the way I removed the bottom bracket in the end is I clamped the tool to the bike using these quick clamps. So the tool's clamped on, then it won't ping out the splines every time I apply a torque to it because it's compressed into place. And yeah, I just undid it using this adjustable spanner and sort of lent on it. It wasn't like super tight into the bike, it's just every time you try to lean on it, the torque difference, because it's quite a long tool, just made the splines pop out, the shallow splines. So yeah, eventually, after a bit of persuading and a bit of a hack around, we got there. I really need to invest in a better bottom bracket tool, the ones where you can bolt up the cranks, but I'm not even sure if that's doable on these Octolink type cranks. And yeah, there we have a kind of rusty, disgusting Octolink style bottom bracket. I think I won't reuse this. I think it's on the edge of usability. So yeah, there we have it. The frame is stripped bare and all the components are off the bike now. So that's about it for this video. Join me in the next video where we're going to do a load of frame and part preparation and see what parts of this bike are actually reusable. It's not as many as you think after we sort of give them a good clean down and look at. And yeah, so we do a good session of frame polishing, and it comes up really well, I think. And then yeah, we have a look at the parts and see what we can reuse and make a bit of a build plan for the build in part 3. So yeah, join me in part 2 hopefully next weekend, and yeah, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Cheers.